Howdy folks, welcome back to the channel. This week, instead of making this truck run better or look better, I decided to build poles so I can lift heavy things around the yard. Howdy folks, welcome back to a nice, beautiful, rainy Alaskan day. Today we're going to get the old service binder fired up. I'm going to back it into the shop. We're going to do a few odds and ends to it, and most primarily is I'm going to get ready to get my gin poles set up on the back of this thing. I'm just doing the quick and easy version right now, and then I'll do the nice fancy ones later. But I got some heavy stuff I want to lift around the yard, and well, all the heavy equipment's out of the yard for the summer, so guess the 3/4 ton gets to identify as heavy equipment. I've got a definitely dead battery there and a can of brake clean because I couldn't find any gas, and we're just gonna, send her all the way and see if she'll go. Alrighty, so this is the least dead of all my batteries, and well, we'll see if it does anything real quick. Nope. Guess I gotta walk up to the house and borrow the jump pack real quick. We'll be back in a moment. Alrighty, after far too much effort, we got the old jump pack going here. I'm going to let it do its thing for a minute. It usually beeps after some amount of time. I don't know what that means, but I think it means you should start the vehicle. With the old service binder here, absolutely nothing has changed since the last time you guys saw it. Something you guys didn't see is I totally filled the boxes full of junk. I had a bunch of stuff that I had to move around, and well, of course, the service truck is the perfect place to store things. So when we get this thing started, we're going to go up the old driveway, find one of my travelettes, and fill that up with stuff. The service travelette, to be more specific. And then, yeah. I think this will be the first time the service binder here has actually been allowed to be in the shop, which is going to be, I don't want to spoil the old thing, but, well, some pretty fancy nonsense going on around these parts. Well, I think we're ready to give her a shot. We'll just give her a snort of the old brake clean. A healthy snort. Sounds like there's still fuel in the carb bowl even. Oh, she's trying. Well, that was a better startup than I thought it'd be. There we go. Nice. Even got a place for my Coke to set. Do the wipers work? Oh, well, that's not cool. Sitting here watching the rain drip from up there to down there, really makes a guy wonder why the floor's all rusted out. Funny stuff. Well, let's see if she'll move. Gotta be kind of careful. Oh, the old F-150 there. Oh yeah, there we go. Thing's just running like a sewing machine since that carb rebuild. Alrighty, well, we're down here with the Scrap Metal Express. I'm slicing and dicing up this big old chunk of C-channel into those. I only have one more to make. And then these guys will go up here side by side, somewhere in there. I want them near the frame rail, which is right about there. And then these guys will be the bottom mounting tabs for my gin poles. There's the poles themselves. That's old core drilling tubing or casing or whatever you want to call it. So we'll have our tabs down here. I'll put a tab in there. So I'll have a single tab coming out of the bottom of the poles that'll go in here. We'll have 2 tabs on the bumper and a big old bolt or a big old pin or whatever I can find to put in there. So I need 4 of these. That's a little toasty. 4 of those, and then I'll have to figure out pins to go in there. And cutting them with the angle grinder, I'd use the oxyacetylene, but you know, of course we're all out of oxygen, because why would there be oxygen in the oxygen bottle? So anyways, I'm cutting away at it, just same old, boring. Figured I'd give you guys a quick update though. Alrighty, I had a long night last night working on this thing, and here's what we're looking at right now. I've got it pretty much blocked out to give myself an idea of what we're looking at and what it's going to look like. You can see I just cut slots in the tube here and shoved these, I don't know, 1/2 inch thick plates in and then welded all around. This is just MIG weld. I'm not a proficient welder by any means. I've never had any lessons or anything. I'm a YouTube certified welder. So anyways, so that's what we're looking at. These are 3/4 inch holes, so I'll have 3/4 inch pins going through here, which I think will have plenty of strength. Obviously, this is just like a 7/16 inch bolt, just to give myself an idea. And these plates are just tacked on here for right now, because I wanted to get an idea of how far apart or how close I needed them to be. And I think right there is going to be just right for these plates. So I can go ahead and clean them up and then final weld those on. And then I need pins, and then I need to do the exact same thing on the other side, which again, getting all this to where I'm at now, that took like 5 hours, and well, I broke some drill bits, which kind of irritates me because I wasn't even that hard on them, but oh well, just kind of the way she goes here. But unfortunately, I'm gonna have to clean this up for right now and shelve it, and I got something else to work on, and we'll revisit this project in a little while. So look forward to that in about... Alrighty, well, we're back at 'em here bright and early on a Saturday afternoon. Think we're gonna try and finish this up or get close to it. Here's where I ended off last week. These plates are just mounted on, and then you guys saw that I got the one pole with the bracket on it for this. So I just need to do all of that on the other side. But in news for you folks, last weekend Austin was around, and well, I kind of wanted to rally this thing around. So we tried to ride it or run it around a little bit and enjoy it, and what ended up happening is it kept backfiring. The carb was just puking fuel down the engine, so it'd backfire, catch all that fuel on fire, and then of course fire. So you know, what the heck's going on, of course. So we dug into it a little bit, trying to figure it all out. And what we ended up with here is I put on another carburetor that I had. That carburetor, the needle and seat were junk, and so it was still just dumping gas down the engine. So now we have the fuel bowl and metering block off the 500 CFM Holley with the jets out of my smaller carburetor, the power valve out of the smaller carburetor, and then the whole body is the smaller carburetor. So in theory, I think we have a 350 CFM carburetor, which is way better for this engine, and it runs a lot better. And then part of the reason why it was backfiring is 2 of the plug wires were swapped, which I didn't do, so I don't know, somebody must be messing with me or something. But anyhow, this thing runs a lot better, and so thought you guys know. Alrighty, here's where we are at this point in time. So I got my second pole all welded up with the mount on the bottom, and then I started final welding these plates on here. I'm just working on that side. I'm stuck using the little MIG here, so I have to weld in short little bursts and then wait. So the only welds I'm really proud of are these over here, And then everything else is where I had to start taking breaks. And yeah, it's not as good, but you know, I'm no professional welder, so it's just going to be what it is. And if it breaks, I'll fix it. And well, I'll learn welding even better that way. So I'm going to keep after it. Once I get that one all welded up, I'll get that second pole on there, and then I can figure out spacing and height and how to do the ends so that I can hang a chain fall off of there. So slow but steady progress here. Alrighty, progress, we're getting there. I got the end all set up, mostly. There's still a little bit to do. I need something here for my tie back that's gonna actually, you know, hold the poles up. But I mean, it's looking good. Before somebody even wastes their breath saying it, yes, I know this notchy is not level. I didn't do that. This is just a steel plate that we had outside that had these holes in it. So this plate worked great for the end here. These are just 1/2-inch holes. This plate will be resting on the end here. It will not be putting all the weight on these bolts. And even if I'm lifting something that's gonna break a 1/2-inch bolt, I mean, I might be lifting a little too much anyways. It's all looking good down here. Plenty of space, plenty of wiggle room on these pins. These are just big bolts that I had laying around. I'll probably pick up some actual pins for this so that it's not so, well, what's even the point? It's all janky. But anywho, just a quick update for everybody. I'm almost to a point where we're gonna get them set upright and we'll see how it looks with the poles up. Alrighty, well there's my first look at it at least. It's pulled way over to the driver's side just because that was the only place I could hook the come along. I hate to do this, and I really didn't want to have to do it with this truck, given that it has the bed with the closing back and the sliding top. But my tie backs for the poles are going to have to be drilled through the floor of the bed and down into the frame, which means that anytime I have the poles up, these doors will either have to be opened or closed, and then the top will always have to be back. I'm not cutting any of this stuff off, but it's going to be slightly inconvenient, and it's kind of going to spoil the point of having a sliding top on this truck. I had originally wanted to do kind of a head frame in between here, but my memory was not very good, and I thought there was a lot more space back here. But I mean, I can't even get my arm in there. There's no way I'm going to get stout enough steel to hold all the junk I intend to lift with this thing. But anywho, all that aside, there we go. That's quite a look at it. I think we've got 10 feet of lift up to the top of the poles, which is great. That's exactly what I was looking for. I think it's going to be pretty stout. I mean, like I said before, my welds aren't perfect, but they're there. And, well, we'll see how they hold up. I just won't stand under the poles at any point in time. So, well, I'll try not to stand under the poles. But anyhow, I'm actually going to drive this thing out like this because I got to unload the rest of the bed. This is some historic lumber that I have from one of the local towns. It's about 110 years old or so. So that's some pretty neat stuff. I had it in here because the top was closed, of course. But now that I have the poles set up, I'm going to go put this stuff in another place. This is the loop that I aim to somehow connect up top so that I'll have a nice hook. Either this will be for the tie backs or this will be for the chain hoist. I'm not sure yet, but I have that there. So yeah, I'm gonna go unload the bed and then I'll try and finish things up a little bit here. Well, things are escalating as they do. I got all the lumber out of the bed like I said I was going to do, and on the way down it just started to really annoy me that this thing had this exhaust leak, and so got the exhaust manifold gasket out, and I just don't know why it was leaking. I mean, you know, that's a pretty good, yeah. And you can see on the spark plug boot here how it's all singed, and then we have on the fuel filter even, like this exhaust manifold, it was just blowing air up everywhere, making a ungodly mess, and then it was missing the center bolt as well. So I'm trying to get one of those in, and hopefully it'll be a little bit better. It's no, you know, professional repair or whatever. This truck, nothing's really professional, but you know, good enough for who it's for. Well, I could have sworn that I had a new set of gaskets for one of these, but apparently I don't. But what I did have was 2 used ones, and I just went ahead and stacked those and threw them in there, so I'm sure this thing will run like a top. Alrighty, now that everything's out of the getting eaten by the fan range, we'll give her a shot and see what it sounds like. I think the donut gasket still leaks, but sounds a little better. Now you can really hear the lifters just clattering. It's great. Alrighty, back in the shop here. I'm working on this guy. So of course this is the top. I took a page right out of the Backyard Alaskan book, and I've got a big old U-bolt here. I just tacked it on here, and I'm gonna finish welding it here in a minute. And then this guy I will bend down, and then this guy I'll hook my chain hoist off of, and then the big eye bolt that I showed you that's buried right there, I'll have going out the other side kind of at an angle, and that'll go with my chains back to hold the poles up. So I think that'll work out pretty good. I just set this guy here. But we've got a bit of a revival here. For welding that guy on, I don't really trust the little MIG there, especially since the shop here does not have the juice to really weld it. When I was doing those plates, I had to take little breaks or else it'd pop the breakers. So, you know, those might just break off at some point. Oh well, I don't really want the top to break, so we've got a little bit of a revival here. We've got a sassy old Hobart welder. She's powered by a Wisconsin here. This thing's been tucked away over in the corner there. And this was my great-grandfather's, and now it's my dad's. I asked my dad if I could use it, and he said, yeah, sure, but it wasn't, didn't really want to run the last time he used it. So I'm going to dive into that, see if I can't get this thing running good, and see if I can't use the good old stick welder to put this thing together. Alrighty, the Hobart here takes an old lawnmower battery. You can see the corrosion coming off this thing. It was punched out for 2009, so it's safe to say that battery's junk, but we'll just give her the boost on the old John Deere battery charger here and see if it'll crank over. That's the ignition. It's pushed in, so the ignition is not on right now. Not quite enough juice yet. We'll give it a moment. Yeah, as I recall, this thing is very loud. It's always had this tin can on it for the exhaust. So, yeah, she makes a little bit of racket. That's neat. Let's see. That guy's the choke, and then this guy should be the throttle. So hopefully that battery takes a little bit of juice. I'm pretty sure this thing has a generator on it to, well, it is a generator. Pretty simple, just a little 2-cylinder Wisconsin. Might be smart to check the oil. Right on the full mark. Smells like good old oil. Sediment bowl doesn't look too dirty in here. I believe this thing ran like 3 or 4 years ago. So I mean, it's not a real old revival, but you know, it's an old Bendix updraft carb. Goodness. Yeah, I have no idea the age on this thing other than probably 1960s, I'd say. So I'm going to turn that off, pull the spark plugs out. I'll put a little oil down the plug holes, and then we'll see if it spins over much better without the plugs in. I don't want to fry everything, you know, just jumping it here, so I'll have a look over it. Alrighty, well, I cranked this thing over just a little bit. It still cranks just as slow with the spark plugs out, which is not a great sign. I might notch a pipe or something so that I can spin this manually. Of course, it's got provisions for a hand crank. I don't have one of those just kicking around. And then while I was cranking it over, I had these in, and I was grounding them up here on the air cleaner to see if they were sparking. They were not, so I popped the old distributor cap off, and well, there might be a bit of a reason why it's not sparking. So I think we're gonna clean these up and see what it says. I gotta try not to break or lose anything. I've never worked with an old Wisconsin like this. I have no idea how available parts are or anything like that. And well, I'd really rather not have to buy parts. So I'll do what I can. Of course, those need to be cleaned up, and this whole distributor should probably come out and get cleaned up because that is just gnarly, but I'll do what I can right now. Alrighty, well, for the life of me, I can't get this thing to really spin over, and I think the old starter here is just not loving life. I can see right here that the nut's kind of stripped out, so it looks like somebody already kind of, you know, rebuilt it, and you can see the paint and everything. This paint's actually on the spark plug, so I assume my great-grandpa painted it, and it hasn't had new spark plugs since it was painted, or a distributor cap, or wires, or any of that stuff, which I find hilarious, and it's been running this whole time that way. But yeah, I'm gonna pop the starter off and spin it separate with the jump pack and see how the starter's doing just by itself, because it is really, I mean, you guys heard it, it just sounds awful. So we'll see about that, and if not, maybe grounds and whatnot, we'll go through the whole troubleshooting here. I really didn't want to do this, but it would be nice to use this thing a little bit, so I guess I'll dive in. Alrighty, well, I went for a walk to retrieve the jump pack. I sort of had a realization, and I was thinking, I don't think this thing has a starter solenoid, and sure enough, it doesn't. The positive cable goes to this switch, and then the negative goes out, so this is just a big switch is all. So if this switch is all corroded or something inside, kind of like the distributor was, then that would cause it to crank slow and sound labored. So I've got the jump pack here, just ground, that's where the battery ground goes, and then positive right on the starter here. That's what an old Wisconsin should sound like. I think I'm going to hook the spark plugs up, or see if we have spark up there, and I'll use this guy on the jump to give it power for the ignition. I'm pretty sure it's going to need that, and then, yeah, hopefully we'll have something going on. I guess we'll see. Okay, my apologies, I can't really show you because, you know, awkward one-handed nonsense. I need one hand to turn the jump pack on and one to hold the screwdriver. But it's got good spark now, so it was just cranking over way too slow before. So I think we're in business for a start almost. So I'll turn this guy to boost, and then this guy. Give it a little bit of choke. Hell yeah. So it's running 100% on the jump pack. I don't know if the generator's doing enough to put some juice back in the battery, but that's rad. I think sounds great. I'm glad we kind of got it worked out here. So it probably needs a new switch since the starter sounds awesome. And obviously a battery. The battery's garbage, but Yeah, that sounds just like what it used to sound like. So I think I'm going to see if I can't get this thing to stay running on its own without the the battery charger. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm going to see if I can't get it to run without the battery charger on it, because I'd really like it to, do its own thing and not have that on it. But yeah, sweet. Kind of a revival, I guess. I didn't expect the distributor to be so grody in there. And apparently this switch is junk too now, so. Anywho, I'm going to see if I can't get this thing to stay running, and if I can't, weld a little bit with it. Alrighty, well, we had the welder going for a good little while and then it quit. I was able to just put the jump pack on the battery there, so it's not running off the battery charger there. And it seems like the start button is working better now, which is awesome. I did not expect that. So it cranks over a lot better now. It sounds a lot better, but it just shut off on me. I thought the fuel line was clogged. Turns out it's just plumb out of fuel. So I guess I got to go get fuel. And, if you thought my MIG welds were bad, don't look at that. We're figuring it out. That thing's running a little bit better every here and there, and that's really helping out. It's not running super smooth, so, but anyhow, I'm super glad to be using that thing. It's super rad, and, well, I'm getting there. Once this is done, I'll get out the oxyacetylene. They got new oxygen, so I can bend this down and have my hook for the chain fall, and then I just have to weld the loop on for the tiebacks. And we should be in business. Well, there she is. I think I mentioned last night I had that big U-bolt I was going to weld on the top and then bend down so that I could hang the chain hoist off of it. Well, I welded that on and was trying to heat it up with the torch, but it turns out that like 1-inch thick U-bolt was a little too much to bend, so I just torched it off and called it quits. I think later on I'm going to completely redo that plate, because I wanted it to be wide enough I could put shackles on and do one chain on either side of it as my tiebacks. So obviously that got kind of messed up by the short plate that I had. So of course this whole setup was built out of stuff from the scrap pile. I think I'm invested like $50 into it in cutoff wheels, a drill bit, and I bought a hook and then a couple of those links there to loop chains together. So that's all I've got into this setup. It's a pretty quick and dirty little thing, and well, I think it'll work out pretty nice. There's only one thing left to do. We gotta at least try it out a little bit. So I think we'll go try and lift something up and, well, see what happens. Oh yeah, and you might notice I just went ahead and took these doors off. Surprisingly, these screws came out, so I was just able to pop the doors out. And if I ever get rid of this whole setup, I can put these doors back on and have an enclosed bed again. I really wanted to do this setup on like a flatbed truck, or just like a bare frame would have been my preference, but of course, limited budget. I was waiting to see what would pop up in a 3/4 or 1 ton or bigger truck, and the service truck showed up. It was only $400, so I was like, yeah, that's perfect. I can pack my tools in it, have my gin pole set up, and it'll work great. I'd considered cutting these poles down to fit into this box, because it goes all the way to the front, which would have been a good idea, but I didn't want to lose so much length. I think I'd have to slice it right there where that white mark is, right in there, and I didn't want to lose that much length off the poles. So maybe in the future, if I change things up, I can cut these poles short and then make them so they fit in the bed, and then I can stow them away for travel and whatnot. But for right now, this will work out great. I'm sure it'll be pretty stout. This truck's not leaving the yard anytime soon, so it's not like I need to worry about stowing the poles or anything like that. So anywho, yeah, I thought it was cool that I could just pull these doors off. So they're right there. That right there on the front's this door right here that keeps falling off, so it could just stay off the truck. I keep my tire chains in there for right now. So, and I think I can slide the top most of the way. I can't latch it. It latches in right there, so I can't exactly latch that, but that's not that big of a deal. Alrighty, well, I've already got a job for the old pole truck here. I've got this big heavy bumper I took off it was like an 84 F350. I'm gonna move this thing out of here so it's not taking up space. So we'll send her with the chain hoist and see how the old pole setup does, you know. If it can't lift this, then, well, I'm going to be very disappointed. So far, so good. We'll see how she holds going up the driveway. I guess we'll know it failed if I hear any loud bangs or anything like that. How about that? She made it. We'll drop this thing right here. It's nice and out of the way for now. And then I think I've got a 7.3 IDI that I'm going to put in the back of this parts truck here so it's off the ground. Well, we got this guy up in the air. Fortunately, I'm able to kind of stand off to the side while I do this, but I would prefer the chain hoist with the chain that you work through. That way I could also have my hoist actually at the top instead of needing this looped chain to where it's at a level that I can work with it. Kind of a sort of an issue with having a hoist this tall, but you know, ideally I'd be rich and I could build a winch setup to go in the bed, and then, you know, that would just be great, but oh well. So I'm gonna pick this guy up and we're gonna put it in the back of that truck, and then I can put a tarp on it. It's off the ground, it's under cover. And eventually I've actually got a topper that I'm going to set on that truck so that then I can throw boxes of parts and all kinds of stuff in there and really just kind of turn that thing into a storage unit now that I've taken the good running driving parts, and then the 7.3 and the 5-speed eventually will have another home to go into. So anyhow, this 7.3 IDI came with my 1990 F250, and so it's been sitting here. I've had it covered up. It was already rusty when I got it. I've got all the other parts, cylinder heads and everything for this engine. And so yeah, I just didn't want it out here kind of on the ground, and I could get it in the back of that, off the ground, out of the way. And well, it makes it a little less unsightly, so, you know. Anyhow, we'll get this thing pulled around behind that and we'll try and get this thing in here. I might have to change my rig up so I can lift the engine higher to get it into the back of the truck, but we'll just see when we get there. Alrighty, well, this ain't no certified OSHA approved lifting device, but for my purposes I'd say this thing's pretty stout and I think it'll hold up for now. I'm definitely going to redo that top plate. I'm just not happy at all with how it turned out, and I want it wider, but I mean, I built this thing in like 2 or 3 days or something like that, and well, I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it'll hold up, and it's not good enough for a lot of people, but it's good enough for this guy, so works for me. Tune in later on and we'll make this truck not pink anymore.